Hello, welcome to the second podcast that we're producing for the UKPHR Specialist Registration by Portfolio Assessment route. I'm Carol Wood, I'm one of the specialist moderators. And
I'm Judith Hooper, the second specialist moderator.
So this podcast is going to talk about the pre-application process. All of the information we're giving you is covered by the guidance. So I'm going to say once again, it's really important that you look at the guidance on the website, UKPHR website, and make sure you have the latest version. I'm just going to cover some main points. So the pre-application is to make sure that you as an applicant are working at the right level. And by the right level, we mean the level of a newly qualified consultant in public health that has completed the Faculty of Public Health Specialty Training Programme. The other element is that you need to be able to evidence the full range of competencies for UKPHR specialist registration when submitting your portfolio. Now, it's really important that you're mindful of the matrix, and I'm going to talk about this later. It's a very useful tool for checking that you be able to tick off all the competencies and produce evidence for all the competencies. So the first thing to say is it's not a developmental route. If you get through the pre-application process, you only have 12 to 18 months to get your portfolio in. So there really isn't time to actually do a lot of development work once you've approved. This is checked, of course, at the pre-application stage. So it's really important that you've kind of got everything lined up before you apply at the pre-application stage. When you submit your pre-application, you need to be confident that you're ready to start preparing your portfolio. And also the assessors who look at your pre-application material also need to be confident. So it's really important that you take the time you need to prepare. It's far better to spend a little bit of time looking at your matrix, preparing your professional development plan, thinking about all the different pieces of evidence you're going to have to present, and maybe planning some professional development and career plans around the competency framework, and really take your time to do that. So if you're an applicant thinking about this route, what do you need to do? The first thing, again, is to read the guidance so that you really understand the process, especially the timescales, the assessment outcomes, and the number of clarifications, resubmissions that you're allowed to have. So really get to know the process and what's involved, read through all the documents. It's important that you keep checking the UKPHR website for updates. We generally do those updates just to make sure that the guidance is as clear as possible, rather than making, lots of changes to the process. And also become familiar with the pre-application form. It's one of the essential things to do first off is to check that you comply with the eligibility criteria, which are really clearly stated in the pre-application guidance. And then look at all the guidance, not just the pre-application guidance, but look at the portfolio guidance as well. You'll need to be very familiar with the two documents of the know-how competencies and the show-how competencies. Those are in separate documents, and they're listed in the stage 2 part of the portfolio development part of the website. So make sure you've looked at those competencies and fully understand them, and then identify any gaps. Have you really got the experience and the evidence at the right level, so that every single one of those competencies you will have to produce your evidence against them? So make sure you've got a handle on your gaps. And the best way to do that is to look at the matrix and to use that matrix to stock take evidence and experience against each competency to make sure that you've identified your gaps. And it's worth doing that really thoroughly and carefully. Can you really fill those gaps and provide all the evidence needed within the 18-month timescale? It's worth thinking about any areas of development that you might want to identify on your personal development plan. The assessors will look at your planning around any competency gaps and be looking for evidence that you've identified any competency gaps, and also got a plan to address them. And that plan is actually realistic and achievable in the 18-month time frame you will have to write your portfolio. So when you're looking at this, just make sure that you've really considered the gaps, having a word with your line manager as well to make sure that that's clear when you do the application, pre-application form, that you have their support for doing any pieces of work or any extra study that you might need to do, because we'll be looking for that as well. Basically, we're looking for, we're looking to get confident that you'll be ready to submit your portfolio within the 18-month time frame. And the focus of the competencies is on specialist public health practice, not just the managerial one. So you need to be able to reflect the full range of specialist public health competencies. Okay, I'll hand over to Judith.
So I'm just going to talk you through the softer bits about how to pull things together to get your application through. First of all, it's a bit like sitting in an exam. Look at the question. If you look at the form, there's a number of factual statements that you need to make. There's then a number of questions which actually reflect some of the competencies that are in the faculty training program. And just make sure you're sticking to the question being asked. Each assessor, and I will speak for all of them, knowing them all fairly well, all of us start with on the side of the applicant. We open up whatever the documentation is and just say, no, I really hope we can get this person through. So you just need to remember to keep the assessor on your side, and the assessors will get hawkish if you don't answer the question or you deviate off. Try and stick to the word limit, be precise and concise. Again, thinking about keep the assessors on your side, because we really want to get you through, but we are going to get hawkish if you start getting very fluffy. It's not very British to write in a way that's selling yourself. So lots of I did this, I led that, I developed so-and-so, etc. is not the normal kind of language we use, particularly in public health, when we're usually trying to change everybody else around us. But you are selling yourself here, and you have to provide the evidence in the portfolio eventually to substantiate your claims. So lots of I verbs, lots of what you did, etc. There are up to 14 requirements for the pre-application process, and that's to enable us to get an accurate assessment of where you're at in your career. The membership of a formal CPD scheme is required, and we would suggest you look at the faculty list of other formal CPD schemes if you don't want to join the faculty's own scheme, which is very good. There's also a 360-degree feedback tool required, and again, UKPHR and the faculty can provide you with a list of recommendations. And some of those are very apt for public health practice. Both of these are required simply because once you're licensed as a specialist in public health, you have to do formal CPD, be part of a formal CPD scheme. And clearly in terms of revalidation every 5 years, you have to do a 360-degree tool. So reviewing the matrices and the application form should help you review your own learning and experience across the breadth of all the competencies. Even if you've got gaps, if you've got a clear plan about how you're going to fill those gaps in that 18-month period between acceptance and the portfolio submission, we will try and accept you. If the gap feels too big, then the assessors may not. So just be really practical, realistic about how much you're going to be able to do in that 18 months. Having done the matrices and the pre-application form is daunting, but it does help you identify your PDP needs and your future career choices. So just stick with it. And what happens if you're refused in terms of pre-application? You get a feedback call with the assessors and you can reapply 6 months later. Those who fail the pre-app, and about half the folk at the moment who are sending in their pre-applications do fail, And it's nearly always due to being specialist in one discipline of public health and have no clear plan about how they're going to cover the breadth of all the competencies from either their CV, their CPD, or their PDP. So beware, if you're a specialist in one particular field, how are you going to cover the whole lot sufficiently to be at the right level? And a word of warning, if you're deciding to do the faculty diplomat exam, so therefore you don't have to fulfill the know-how competencies specifically, it's highly advisable to get that under your belt and out of the way before putting in the pre-application form, because then all you have to do is focus on your show hows. And it also is less worrying for the assessors in terms of, is this person really going to get through? So finally, this may feel really daunting at the beginning, but it is a thorough review of where you are in your public health career, and we want you to get through. And in the guidance that we've given you, we're doing as much as we possibly can to make things as clear as possible. The whole pre-application process is a useful review of your learning and experience in public health, and it's worth keeping going because it really does help sort out the next developmental phase for your career. Many of the applicants and registrants have said it's been the best thing they've ever done because they've realized what they really don't know. Carol, any final comments from you?
No, I think we've covered all the main points, so I hope you found this useful.
And good luck.
Thank you.